Book 101 review, and can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
I don't know. I think you did a pretty good job. I think that sort of sums it up. I'm an entrepreneur, philanthropist, father of four, and author. So I think you've probably add husband, farmer. There's a couple other things, but I think you did a pretty good job.
And Mr. Rob, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So, today, let's talk about your latest book. Hey Dad. So tell us, the title Hey Dad feels like the start of a long overdue talk. What was the pivotal moment for emotion that compelled you to write this book?
Well, think about this. It's for any of your listeners who are parents, they can probably appreciate this. So, middle of the night, I'm sound asleep, and I get a late night call from one of my kids. And of course, a late night call is the thing we all fear, right? This is midnight or 1 o'clock, and I pick up my phone, and it's my daughter on the other line. Of course, I'm like, "What's wrong?" She asked if she could put the green gas in her Jeep. I was sort of thinking, like, what do you mean the green gas? I had to wake up a little bit. And I realized she was asking if she could put diesel fuel in her gasoline engine. And so at that moment, I couldn't fall back asleep. Of course, no, you can't put diesel in your gas engine, but it made me feel, have I taught my kids everything that I should have? They're young adults, they're going out in the world. And so I thought, boy, I enjoy writing books. Why don't I write a book about all the things that I think my kids should know, but they don't?
Interesting, Mr. Rob. This book seems to answer a question many men have. What I suppose to be thought? What is the most significant non tangible thing, the mindset or emotional skill that you believe fathers often fail to pass on?
I think it's fathers, it's mothers, it's parents in general. I think, but for the most part, I think a lot of it was the encouragement to fail. And I think that's, a lot of times as parents, especially fathers, we might be competitive with our kids and want them to be very successful and don't want to see them fail. But in reality, having them embrace failure as a step in their journey is critical. So I think that would be the number one thing is it's okay to fail. Just get up and try again.
It's okay to fail, people, and you need to learn from them. How do you decide what belong in a category of everything you should have learned? What is
I,
that based on your gaps, common struggles you see in men today, or vision of a more complete emotional intelligent man?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a little bit of both. I think what I really tried to do is get a foundation, right? Starting with sort of the journey that a young adult would take when they graduate from school. So, one, figuring out what they want to do in life. Two, go get a job. Three, learn how to manage and organize your money. Find a place to live, make friends, be prepared for all the things that happen when you have a place: taxes, insurance, get a car, making friends, being prepared for emergencies. And I think what was really exciting about this book was it wasn't just me. I went out and I interviewed 30 experts in all sorts of things, from a US Navy SEAL to a NASCAR race car driver to clinical psychologists and everybody in between, to get their perspective of what they need to know. So it really is, think of this as more of this is the building block of the journey of your life. Not everything, because you're always learning in life, and that's what makes life exciting, but this was truly about the basics. Get up. Okay, you just graduated. All right, let's figure out what you want to do. Let's show you how to get a job. Let's show you how to get a car. Let's show you how to get an apartment. Let's show you how to manage money, how to get bank accounts, so on and so forth.
If you had to point to one chapter or lesson as an absolute foundational starting point for a man trying to reparent herself or himself, what would it be and why?
Well, I think it's budgeting, right? I think budgeting is really a critical component of life. And I think for many people, budgeting is always has that connotation of being negative, right? Oh, I don't want to live within a budget. But budgeting actually provides financial freedom. And I think people, no matter what journey they are in life, whether or not they're starting out or they're planning for their retirement, budgeting and living within their means is a really important foundational skill that everybody must know.
Indeed, budgeting for sure. Many men were not taught how to process emotions like grief, fear, or vulnerability. What is the practical first step you offer for a man to identify a healthy express an emotion he's even thought to suppress?
Well, I think look, I think people all structure and process stress and grief in very different methods. I think the important thing for anybody is to be able to find a healthy release for that. For young men, it might be physical activity. For some, it might be painting. It might be whatever it is. I think the critical thing is finding the appropriate outlet for yourself, and once you find that, then make sure you utilize that outlet, because that's keeping it bottled in is not healthy, clearly. But going out and finding the right source of being able to release it is a very good and important thing.
Mr. Rob, what does it look like to actually be a supportive partner and a parent beyond just being a provider? What is the concrete action or communication style you outline that break a cycle of emotional distance?
Well, I think what, to me, I really consider parenting very much like coaching. Many people know me; I'm a big fan of football. And I equate sort of as you grow and you raise kids, your parenting style is very much like coaching. So when your kids are younger, your coaching style is much more like a high school football coach or a JV or a Pop Warner football coach, where you're giving very specific instructions for them to follow. As they get older, it becomes much more like a pro, where you're more like a mentor, you're more providing guidance, not necessarily instruction. And so I think depending on where your kids are at the age where they're at, I think that's where it comes into your parenting and your communication style. I think it is important that parents have a fine line between parenting and also being supportive. Being a parent, you need to be tough. You need to have expectations for your children. You need to have guidelines, and that's important. And but you also, at the same point, you need to let your kids fail. You need to let them. You don't need to be hovering them. You don't need to be the helicopter parent. You need to let them go and explore on their own. So, all that being said, I think it's really the conversation and the support comes down to a healthy balance of both firm and supportive.
A healthy balance for sure. And Mr. Rob, the book likely goes beyond money. What is an example of life literacy skill like managing time, building community, or maintaining home that is just as critical as a financial success?
Well, I think there's one is, to thine own self be true. Really understanding yourself and what you want to do. I think a lot of young adults in particular struggle with this in these changing times, where they've graduated from school thinking they're going to do something, have their life all planned out, because quite frankly, for all their life has been planned. From the time they started elementary school or kindergarten all the way up, first grade, second grade, third grade. It's all been pre-programmed for them. All of a sudden, they step out, and now it's up to them to be on their own and make their own decisions. And so I think that concept of being able to thine own self be true, but also understanding that. they will have to figure out their life, and they will have to, and it's okay. It's okay to have change and pivots in your life, because you will continually do this over your entire life, trying to figure out what's next. People also always go through these transitions in life, whether you're graduating from college, you're saying goodbye to your kids as they've left home. So all of these changes, it's about being adaptive and about being flexible and confident as yourself as a young adult to be able to handle these changes.
Interesting, Mr. Rob. And let's talk about forgiveness and the father son relationship. How does your book guide a reader forward understanding or forgiving an absent or emotionally unavailable father without demanding reconciliation?
Well, I don't really go into that psychological stuff. I think really what it's mostly about is this book is really about, it's a very lighthearted guide on what you should know as a young adult. This is not about a lot of the emotional stuff that is lingering on. This is there are doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists who are much better equipped to handle those kind of conversations than I am. To me, this is about providing guidance for young adults, providing the framework for them to lead happy, healthy, successful lives.
Is there also a message in this book for dads who are still in the picture of willing to learn? How can it serve as a bridge for conversation and growth between generations?
Well, I think yes. I think this book is actually good for anybody, from a parent who's has children still at home to a parent who doesn't have children at home, or somebody who doesn't have children. It doesn't matter. These are steps. These are foundations. As I said, I asked 30 experts. These are people who are incredibly accomplished in something, whether it's finding a place to live, getting a job, getting a raise, getting a promotion, what to do in an emergency. Those are the types of information that anybody can use. And so it doesn't really matter what stage you are, if you're a dad early on or a dad later on or a mother, it doesn't matter. This book fits for everybody.
Well, that's really interesting book, Mr. Rob. While frame for men, do you find lessons in Hey Dad are equally applicable for women who may have had a similar gaps to their upbringing?
I think that's the thing. It's everything, right? It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter. These are things that, um, Hey Dad was because of my personal experience. I'm a dad, so that's why it's Hey Dad. But anybody can come up with this stuff, because everybody, no matter male or female, have the same issues. We all leave home. We all get a job. We all need a place to live. We all need to get a car or transportation. We will all have emergencies. We all need banking. So it doesn't matter. This is truly about just life, nothing more.
Just life for sure. So, Mr. Rob, as a seasoned entrepreneur, philanthropist, and a best-selling author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Well, just keep on doing what I'm doing. Right? Enjoy life. Take it as it comes along. Be positive. Be optimistic, and try to be a really good person.
To be a really good person, good luck to your goals, Mr. Rob, and hoping for more empowering books to come. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Uh, just do it. Right? It's yeah. Nobody's going to ask you to do it. You have to do it yourself. So quite frankly, it's from an entrepreneur standpoint, you've got to just one day get up and say, I'm going to do it, and make it happen. Just like writing a book, at some point, you just got to say, I'm going to do it and get it done. It's not always fun and pleasant, but doing it. So it's all about having the dedication and the motivation to do things and accomplish things.
Just do it, people, and stop procrastinating. If you have a talent, please show to the world and share it. And Mr. Rob, thank you for that advice. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yes, I think one of my favorite books is The Art of the Impossible by Stephen Kotler. It's a great book. It's a very good book on really getting flow and really getting into your life and doing things that you didn't think were possible.
Thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Rob. Was there a lesson or chapter that followed out your surprising ease as if was the very core of what you need to say or you needed to say on your book?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. It was a little.
Was there one lesson or chapter that flowed out you with a surprising ease?
Um, I think no, actually no. There were none that were easy. In fact, the first chapter was actually the most difficult because that's much more about emotional, right? It's about what do I do now that I've graduated, whereas the other ones were much more factual, right? Getting bank accounts and how bank accounts work, how taxes work. So it was actually quite the opposite. It was each chapter was difficult to produce, but ultimately it was the first chapter which was the most difficult.
Mr. Rob, how has your perspective on your own father evolved through the process of writing this guide?
I think I've enjoyed doing this. All my kids have read the book. Um, I would question them. In fact, I was sending them chapters well before the book was ever published when I was asked questions on, hey, how do I buy a car? Or how do I get an apartment? So, I think this was all about, I think for the most part, what parents realize is you probably gave your kids this advice anyways or this information is whether or not they consumed it, right? And so I think for the most part this is just a reiteration of maybe the things that I've taught them, but then again it's also a good backstop in case I didn't teach them the things that I want them to know.
Mr. Rob, why do you think this life skills gap persists so strongly from one generation of men to the next? Is it a failure of individuals or wider cultural problem we have not addressed?
I think there's a couple of things. One is obviously parenting. Parents have become um, uh, very much involved in the decisions of their children, and almost to a fault where they don't let them fail, as I've mentioned before. I think when you have children who have never failed and are constantly supported, which, by the way, being supportive is not a bad thing, but in the way where it's detrimental for them to be able to get up and understand their life is not going to be filled with non-failure, right? Unless they live in a bubble. So I think that will change. I also think that we spend, um, you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have social media, right? And social media can be a very challenging time for kids because your kids don't have the reality sort of mirror on there where they can see, well, this person on Instagram, they're flying around on their jet, isn't necessarily real, right? And so I think there's a lot of things that weren't available when I was younger that exist today. So I think that's it. Just comes down to kids are going to be okay. They're going to make it. They're going to be fine, just like our generation was and the generation before that. I think it's just these are differences, and we just have to learn how to deal with each other's differences.
If a lesson in your book were universally taught in any walks of life, how would the most significant positive change look like in our society 20 years from now?
I think people would relax. People would sort of take a deep breath. Not every decision is the life decision, right? And I think that would be an important thing. So if people can come in and understand that life is good, life you're going to learn for your entire life. You're going to be a student for your entire life. When people start to embrace that and enjoy that, that's when I think we're going to see some positive change.
Before we wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Rob, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, and my Book 101 review in fifth season too, Comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in fifth season as well, Geography 101 in fourth season, and my Baby Podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Rob, if this book could only leave one lasting impression on a reader, what would you want that to be?
You don't know everything. So and that's okay, right? Even parents, you don't know everything. So it's really good to just get some foundation.
Indeed, Mr. Rob Finlay, my feature author of the month of November. Thank you so much. Award best-selling author and seasoned entrepreneur. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes, please check me out on robfinlay.com. And you can absolutely see all the stuff I'm working on and enjoy it.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Rob Finlay because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Rob, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks so much for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.